songs to the rose, the grass grows waist-high around the fallen pillars and ruined arches. In the villages round about, the young women no longer come to draw water at the wells and stand talking in the leafy shade of the trees. The villages around the city are deserted, the trees themselves are gone, and the well is full of corpses. Shah Jahanabad, who never deserved this terrible fate, who once vibrant with life and love and hope like the heart of a young lover, you for whom men afloat upon the ocean of the world once set their courses to the promised shore, you from whose dust men came to gather pearls. Not even a lamp of clay now burned where once the chandelier blazed with light. Those who once lived in great mansions now eke out their lives among the ruins. Thousands of hearts that still hope are sunk in despair. There is nothing to be said but this: we are living in the darkest of times. Unable to impose order on his court, and threatened by resurgent enemies on all sides, Shah Alam had no option but to reach out again to Mahadji Scindia, who had finally returned to Hindustan from the Deccan after an absence of 11 years. You must undertake the regency of my house, Shah Alam told him, and regulate my empire. With a letter of supplication, he sent Scindia an Urdu couplet. Having lost my kingdom and wealth, I am now in your hands. Do, Mahadji, as you wish. In many ways, Shah Alam made a canny decision when deciding to seek Mahadji Scindia's protection for the second time. Scindia's power had grown enormously since he left Delhi and headed south in 1772 to sort out affairs in the Deccan. He was now, along with Tipu, one of the two most powerful Indian commanders in the country. Moreover, his troops had just begun to be trained in the latest French military techniques by one of the greatest military figures of 18th century India, Comte Benoit de Boyne, who would transform them beyond recognition. Before long, they would be famed for their wall of fire and iron, which would wreak havoc on even the best trained Indian armies sent against them. De Boyne was responsible for transferring to Scindia's Marathas sophisticated new European military technology, including cannon armed with the latest sighting and aiming systems with adjustable heights and elevating screws, and the introduction of iron rods to their muskets that allow the best trained troops to fire 3 shots a minute. When used by infantry deployed in a 3-row pattern, his Maratha sepoys could keep up a continuous fire at the enemy, deploying an unprecedented killing power. According to one calculation, a squadron of cavalry breaking into a gallop 300 meters from one of de Boyne's battalions would have to face around 3,000 bullets before they reached the sepoys' bayonets. A decade hence, when Scindia's battalions were fully trained and reached their total strength, many would regard them as the most formidable army in India, and certainly the equal of that of the company. Already Scindia's Rajput opponents were learning to surrender rather than attempt to defeat de Boyne's new battalions, and Ajmer, Batan and Murda all gave up the fight after a brief bombardment, rather than face the systematic slaughter of man and horse that de Boyne inevitably unleashed on his enemies. One commander even advised his wife from his deathbed: resist Scindia unless de Boyne comes, but if he comes, then surrender. In November 1784, Scindia met Shah Alam at Kanua, near Fatehpur Sikri. Scindia again prostrated himself, placing his head on the emperor's feet and paying him 101 gold muhurs, so taking up the office of Vakil-i-Mutlaq, vacated by Mirza Najaf's death. But as one British observer noted, Scindia was now the nominal slave, but in reality the rigid master of the unfortunate Shah Alam. The Maratha general, after all, had his own priorities, and protecting the emperor had never been one of them. Visitors reported the imperial family occasionally going hungry, as no provision had been made to supply them with food. When Scindia did visit, he gave insultingly cheap presents such as sesame sweets usually given to slaves and horses. He ordered the Delhi butchers to stop killing cows without even consulting the emperor. Finally, in January 1786, he took his forces off towards Jaipur in an attempt to raise funds and extend Maratha rule into Rajasthan, leaving the Red Fort unprotected for a single battalion of troops of Anup-Giri Hussain. It was while he was away in Rajasthan that Ghulam Qadir, now 20 years old, realized that the Red Fort and its treasures lay now almost undefended. Zabita Khan had recently died, and Ghulam Qadir had just succeeded not only to his father's estate, but also to those of his mother and paternal uncles, all of whom he had immediately imprisoned, seizing all their goods. The ungrateful wretch was behaving as if he was the Pharaoh himself, wrote Ismail. He spoke